like, he's got the needle in one hand, pops it off, and he's just like, I have to do this. And he just gets it right in his arm. And at the same time, in the back, the helicopter's coming down.
And I just remember thinking, what the hell have I got myself into?
Mate, you made me cry. I don't cry.
And I learned who I was by being a paramedic. I wanted to be a movie star when I was younger. I just had these dreams of, winning the Oscar and, performing in these amazing dramatic roles and just performing for people and telling stories.
I wanted to be an athlete. Like, I was really into sports, but being from an Asian family, it was pretty much you had to be a doctor or a lawyer. So I was very much like forced to study and earn my right to do sports.
My motivation, I loved that show House, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a doctor, it's gonna be so cool. And I thought the best pathway was to go in through nursing before I realized that nursing really wasn't for me.
The study, number one, because I'm not a book person. I'm a very hands-on learner. And learning a whole new language, terminology that I had never heard of, it was gonna be hard. It was going to be really, really hard and really, really challenging. It was going to be a very drastic lifestyle change.
The way I came through was a vocational entry where you apply, they look at your life skills, they interview you, you do some psychometric testing online, and they offer you a traineeship for a few years.
Coming from a nursing background, I thought that I was going to be like a step ahead, and I was like, all right, cool, this is going to be good. But some of the content, I just wasn't expecting it. Like, I think I didn't know what to expect.
I had to go down to the resus bay to put on this patient that the ambos were bringing in, and it was a woman who had like 100% burns to her whole body. Like, everything was just gone, and there was smoke like coming out of her mouth. Like, her tongue was just cooked, completely cooked. And she's screaming this awful wail. And I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't be that person that goes to that scene and is the first point of contact to save this woman's life. There's absolutely no way. So anyway, I finished my shift. It was a night shift. So it's about 6:30 in the morning this happened. And then I'm sitting there out the back having my coffee, and I check my phone, and boing, comes up that email. Dear Paul Hillel, welcome to the ambulance service. And I just looked at it and I'm like, fuck.
So the early experiences were very interesting and difficult. Again, I came through the vocational entry, so I had very little clinical understanding of what was happening to the body. So seeing a very sick person was confronting, but working with a qualified paramedic, there's always, someone there to do what you need to do.
It's not all saving lives. I think that's the thing that sticks out to me. Like, I remember my first lecture at uni, and I get there, and this lecturer, he's a really funny guy, been in the job forever, and he goes, how many of you joined this degree because you want to save lives? And everyone puts their hand up because like, oh yeah, I want to save lives. And he was like, I could count on one hand how many lives I've saved.
But when I came into the job and when I was considering it, I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get to live my movie star lifestyle. I'm gonna be running into burning buildings. I'm gonna be saving the day, pulling people out of the water, like in bombs and gunshots and everything, like drama. And it's anything but. I'm talking that sort of stuff is like 5% of the job, which in the long run is, we're thankful for that, because that's a lot of energy and that's a lot of emotion. And if our jobs were peaked at 100% all the time, it would be such an unsustainable career.
Maybe that one pops into mind is like a suicide of a young woman. And I just remember looking at her face, and she was like this really beautiful girl. And I just remember feeling really sad because like, what drove this person to kill herself? As an outsider, like all you see is potential, of what could be. So And I do remember like just feeling a bit sad, but also seeing this like just like she looked quite peaceful though. So I don't know if that made me feel any better, but yeah, that sticks with me.
Late at night, maybe like 1 or 2 a.m, and I was working with a partner that I hadn't worked with before. It was just a one-off shift. And we got called to a patient who was a palliative patient. They were slowly dying of cancer, or treatment and stuff just didn't work. And he was probably in his 50s, and he wanted to die at home. So he had become unconscious, lost control of his bowels, lost control of everything. And they freaked out and called us. He was drowsy, lethargic, yellow, skinny. It just looked like a skeleton. Very, very sad. And they weren't emotionally equipped to deal with it. And how could they be? How could they be in any way emotionally capable to take care of their dying father? And so basically we came up with a plan that he needs to get to hospital. I remember the family were all by his, by the side of the stretcher. You know, they were giving him kisses and you know, not saying goodbye, because nobody knows when these things are gonna happen, but you could see it in their face, like they were concerned, like, as you would be. It was awful. And I've got the ECG dots on him, so I can see his heart rate on the monitor right in front of me. And then we're driving, and it's probably like a half an hour drive to the hospital. And, you know, I'm doing my obs and getting all his vital signs, whatever needs to be done. And I look at him, and he's alert. Like, he's there. His eyes are open, and he's looking straight at me. And we had this moment, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was like he had this moment of pure acceptance. Like, he knew what was coming, and we were just locked. Like, our eyes were locked, and I just had like this overwhelming sense of calm, I guess. And I felt that was coming from him. He had this moment where he was like, okay, I know what's happening. This is it. And he started to reach out his hand slowly towards mine. And I remember I took his hand, and he put his head back, and he just slipped away. Like, and I could see it on the monitor in front of me. Like, it just beep, beep, beep. And yeah, and he died there. And that was hard, because when we got him to the hospital, I opened up my door and his family were all standing there, you know, waiting. And so you've got to be the one to break the news to them, like, he didn't make it.
No, I think I've definitely been exhausted at times. I'm sure, like, if you talk to any other healthcare workers before, throughout the pandemic, like, it's tiring. Like, there were some really, really exhausting times, like going to back-to-back COVID patients, and just, yeah, it really does burn you out.
Yes, I did. Yeah, because it's hard and it's stressful, and you question yourself. You really do. When you're put in a situation where you have to make decisions for other people based on their health, it's really scary. It is. But what kept me there and kept me in the job was my mentors, number one, and the patients themselves.
I do remember a moment, probably about 4 weeks into my job, I went to a very sick patient at about 3 a.m, having difficulty breathing, and I just had no idea what was happening. And I just remember thinking, what the hell have I got myself into?
We got called to this motorcycle accident, and it was out in like the bush. and we're just flooring the ambulance like 140 k's down the highway, and we've got like AC/DC pumping in the back, and it's just such an uplifting moment. Like, it's like, yes. And then we get there, and he was combative, right? So he had a lower GCS, and he was just thrashing about on the road. The motorbike's over there, it's half on fire. You know, you've got police everywhere, the fire engines everywhere, shit on the road. It's just drama central. And then I remember we needed to get cannulation, and I remember this intensive care paramedic on the ground, and he grabs this guy, and he's got his arm, and he gets his like leg around him, and he's got him in this lock, and it's just like he's got the needle in one hand, pops it off, and he's just like, I have to do this, and he gets it right in his arm, and it's this moment. And at the same time, in the back, the helicopter's coming down, and I just remember seeing all of this and going, I want that to be me. You know? And so I was like, wow, what a fucking hero he was. And I'm still really good friends with him today.
Some people put us on a bit of a pedestal, and I think there's that being called a hero. We do a very niche job, and we have a very specific skill set, and I think that's the difference. Like, that's what we're trained in.
We are affected by each job. We do have feelings, we do have families. So I think sometimes when patients tell us like, oh, you don't know what's happening, you don't know what I'm going through. Maybe, but also maybe we might.
Two things. Number one is that we're human beings as well. So we go to your situation, we go to the patient's situation, you're having the worst day of your life. You know, like the most traumatic thing that could possibly be happening is happening to you. But don't forget that the most traumatic thing that's happening to us could be happening to us as well. I've worked with partners who have been going through horrendous breakups, who have gone through losing family members, who are going through their own emotional turmoil. And then we've got to switch it off and focus 110% of our energy and our mindset on you and your problems. But then when we do that and we get spat on, and we get called names, and we get assaulted, it's unacceptable. And so I think the myths that people have that we're this untouchable superhero, it's such a facade because it's not the way it is.
We do get a bit desensitized to it because we do see it so often. There's definitely some that stick with you a little bit more. I think during that debrief, we let everything out and maybe just leave it there.
Chocolate. Lots of comfort food, lots of talking, and being kind to yourself. It's really, really important in this job to not lose your identity and to really be kind to yourself and do things that you love. Because what you learn is not to take life for granted. Because life can be short and it can just slip away.
I definitely have changed. I think I definitely have changed, but not in a bad way. I've always been pretty independent, but I think it has helped me to kind of reach out and ask for help when I've needed it.
This job has made me a much calmer, much more patient person, because you can't do things fast, because you will make mistakes.
I think as a queer person, we don't grow up as our authentic selves. I think we're forced to pick and choose certain parts of our identity to show and to protect as younger people. And I think a huge part of our adult life is navigating what's authentic and what isn't. And I learned who I was by being a paramedic.
I highly recommend it. I think it's a super interesting job. It's eye-opening. No day is the same.
I wish I had a little bit more confidence before I started, but at the same time, I'm glad I didn't because I wouldn't have learned the things that I had. I think everything happened for a reason, the right way, that I was meant to be on that path at that time, and it was beautiful.
I would tell myself this is the best decision you made, because I think it was like sort of like the perfect timing. And you know, when I'm 90, I get to say that I worked through a pandemic, so that's pretty cool.
I think this job, I wouldn't have had this, like realistically, like, oh my God, I'm so emotional. I wouldn't have had this awesome person if it wasn't for this job. Mate, you made me cry. I don't cry. I'm literally, I tell you what, he's gonna laugh so hard when I tell him I cried, because it takes so much for me to cry. You can't tell him.